Among the most common sexual sins, pregnancy and abortion, all ugly sins, but in and of themselves, they're pernicious evils.
I came to know for myself that Jesus Christ was born of the Virgin Mary, who was a precious and chosen vessel.
Travis went good song. The final week till February. And so, got caught up with the weekend stuff. It's easy to do because it's the weekend. And I guess all there was that Oscar thing. I don't know why people watch it. Seriously. You do know it's fake, right? See, the WWF, real. It's entertainment that's scripted. Oscars, no. It seems like it's scripted, but no, they've already decided who the winners are before they even announce who's nominated. It's because the judges use their opinion to determine who the winner is. There is no standard scientific measurement process for aesthetics. That's all movies are. They're art. Right, YouTube? So there should be no standard measurement for community guidelines, because there's no such thing. Right, YouTube? Nonetheless, people keep watching as the ones who win are like, yeah, we won. Oh, this is a surprise. I'd like to thank everybody in my life. I have to be dragged off stage for taking too long. The least we can have is some violence. Somebody rushing the stage, pissed that they didn't win. At least make it entertaining. But no, everybody has to behave. And so, do you see what's happening? It's pretty much the church that was the major push for this, but it's escalated to the whole nation. The church has been pushing anti-porn and have been trying to ban the internet, ban cell phones, ban social media to protect children and blacklist adults for when they get their kingdom back. As we just had Holocaust Remembrance Day, in which people remembered the Holocaust by vandalizing synagogues throughout the world. And so the Bible was a casualty of war, of the church's porn ban, which was part and parcel with the nation's MAGA book banning, as they were trying to claim that they're porn too. And it was primarily a focus of LGBTQIAPO+ promoting books. But yeah, still, they call it porn. Inappropriate sexual content for children. And so yeah, the Bible took the fall in the battle. And Utah didn't care. They were going to let the Bible be banned. It wasn't until somebody had filed the report to have the Book of Mormon banned that, oh, well, I think this is going a little too far. I think we need to put a stop to this. See, the church even posted on the news, church news. I do the church news weeknights. Every weeknight. Church news, if they have any. If they dare to put it up, I'll cover it. They were pushing, when the Bible got banned in Utah, the church pushed for kids to read their Bible. Hilarious. And people don't get it. People don't see the bigger picture of what's going on. They only focus on what affects them in their lives. And that's the trap. And so, yes, this led to, this is actually, the church's response to this was in 2021. It's been the whole time, but they picked it up again after COVID. And the reason why is that in 2020, that's when you had the Me Too movement that also emerged, along with the Black Lives Matter protest movement. As here in Utah, Black Lives Matter protesters were designated as a terrorist hate group, and thus the police were then activated with military armor to beat down the Black Lives Matter protesters of police brutality. But the Me Too movement was against being raped and nothing being done for justice. And so, after that collapsed with the fake accusations that ruined people's lives, the church then pushed the anti-porn. And if you're unfamiliar with what causes rape, it's abstinence only, doing away with porn. Because when you have a society that doesn't allow for contraception, that doesn't teach sex ed, that doesn't allow for abortions, especially for women who are raped, it tends to intensify the number of rapes. The church knows this. It's patriarchal authority. They know very well. And yet they still were telling us teenage boys, no touchy. We all know they touched. And yet here they are as old men, leaders of the church, saying no touchy. Dear God. Yeah. And so, yeah. Now, as a result of the church's push for banning porn and banning social media, banning the internet, banning cell phones, banning the Bible, you now have Taylor Swift. Apparently AI, which it's strange. Why is it that brand new technology always seems to focus on women? What's up with that? Is there something to that? Are women the most beautiful of all creations? And therefore man must personify them in all of the various art mediums that are invented? Yeah, AI is art. And so it's protected under the First Amendment and Supreme Court precedent. But apparently X, which stands for porn, has banned Taylor Swift and all of the art forms of all of the lonely guys who ain't getting none. Trying out the new technology with all the extra money that they have. Having a girlfriend. This is what happens. is the natural consequence. And the news is like all shocked and horrified. Oh no! It got onto the internet. Tip, it didn't start on X. It was already on the internet. It didn't spread to the internet. It was on the internet first. And people twittered. Dear God. Unbelievable. So yeah, this is stupid. Because anybody remember the deep fakes? Anybody? Deep fakes? Where you could put a picture of a person over somebody else's face? And even had video deep fakes? Anybody? Yeah. There's Taylor Swift deep fakes too. That was only 5 years ago. And before that, anybody remember? Anybody? It was Photoshop. And so why Taylor is all upset? Why the news is all upset? All of a sudden with AI, when Taylor already still has all over the internet her deep fakes and her Photoshops. The Photoshops were when she was jailbait. And still, yeah, people are pushing an agenda. They forget about the past, for which they were arguing when it first came out, and they're pushing the latest thing. I have seen this pattern my whole life, whether it be with music, video games, movies, TV shows, magazines, photographs, technically. It's the same argument from the same kind of people. Every single new creation, new technology. It's the same old argument. Just repeating history, trying to win their case with the latest technology, trying to get their judges bribed sufficiently to overthrow past precedents. So, I really don't care who won the Oscars last night. Really don't. I know what I liked. I know what the population liked and are upset that those judges didn't like Barbie. Why get upset over something that's rigged? Why even participate in something that's rigged? You know, just listen to the advice of Steven Seagal in his first movie, Above the Law. I think it's Above the Law. I think. Well, maybe not. Yeah, I think it was Above the Law. Or, no. I'm drawing a blank. I know the scene. It's where he goes into the shopping market to get marked for death. Ah, marked for death. That is it. Not marked for death. No, yeah. Wait a minute. My associative memory is not cooperating with me here. He goes into a local bodega, buys some wine and caviar for his wife, and he has to take on a gang that's trying to rob the place and shoots the store owner, who were discussing the Oscars with Steven Seagal. Steven Seagal discusses Oscars in what movie? No, Hard to Kill. And so, yeah, the one nurse gave him pussy to try to help him come out of his coma. What are you thinking of? A pussycat. Cute little pussycat. Now, that nurse, if she would have done that to me, she would have murdered me. I have allergies to dander. Nonetheless, marked for death. And you can take that to the bank. So, in other news, this is all leading to the topic of the video. Don't think that it doesn't. In other news, the UN has declared the United States of America as having committed war crimes against the Houthi. They're calling for Biden to turn himself in and submit to a hanging execution for his war crimes against the civilian Houthi. Yeah, that's absurd, right? No, that isn't in the news. And what wasn't in the news either was the UN declaring Hamas attack on Israel, as they're still holding hostages to this day, as a terrorist organization and committing war crimes. They never did. But Israel, the victim. Yeah, the UN blamed the victim of war crimes. I have done the videos telling you about my childhood, about how those white supremacists back in my youth are now running the world. People don't seem to want to take me seriously. I've purposely been holding back what they told me as a child, of which they are now implementing. Because it is too horrific to repeat. Let me do a mild one for you. If she's old enough to bleed, she's old enough to breed. And thus the Supreme Court justices overthrew Roe v. Wade, overthrowing the 14th Amendment, Section 1. This was the inevitable result of not punishing criminal behavior. They escalate. They're emboldened. They destroy. Those children were taught to ruin a woman's life as a little girl. Before she even gets to decide what to do with her life is already determined by a rapist. And don't think that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was not responsible for any of this. Because they still had the adoption agency with family services, purposely telling the raped girls that they're to blame and that therefore they're the sinners and need to be excommunicated. And then they've got to have that rape baby and then give it up so it can be raised by a good Mormon family. Not abominable whatsoever, is it? it gets worse. Because they also talked about what happened on January 6th. They were already discussing it as little kids. And I'm not talking about just overthrowing the government with a coup. I'm also talking about the assassinations and murders. They're not just racist bigots. They're racism, bigotry, sexism, anti-Semitism, all are designed to give cause to their more darker crimes of murder and torture. And so, if you think the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would never be involved with that, you have not heard my history with the church. These kinds of crimes are guilty of the death penalty. I reached out to Biden a couple of times the other weeks to do my part as the fulfillment of the prophecy of the Captain Moroni stories. Biden is Pehorin. And Pehorin is aiding and giving comfort to the kingmen seeking to overthrow the government and failing to provide for those in the trenches against the Lamanites. And as I've told you, I did real church history. I found the truth. I didn't listen to critics and got a feeling that they were telling me the truth, like Mormons do with the prophets. Dog park's open. Or the doggy jail, more like it. I've seen inside. They've got cells to lock up the dog in. And a place where they get hosed down. Poor dogs. Let them run free. So the Danites, Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball, were the ones who hatched this whole plot. They joined the church for the sole purpose of destroying it. They first went and recruited all of their Scottish Rites Illuminati who were pissed that somebody freed William Morgan, let him flee the country to save his life, and then hid the manuscript pages, which they wanted destroyed and burned because it exposed their plot to overthrow the government in the latter days. Oh, it's happening, isn't it? And so Heber C. Kimball was the one who found out. Went to Brigham Young and said, hey, I got a plan of how we can get even. Get justice as judges. Dan is judge in Hebrew. And so after recruiting those who wanted revenge on the church of Joseph Smith because of his daddy on 9/11/1826 in Canandaigua, New York, as the Master Mason. Saved America, and what thanks to Mormons and the world have for him. Well, there was a Mormon woman who left the church and was kind of upset with Joseph Smith Sr. being a drunken bum who was irreligious. And so it was all about Lucy Mack, the glue that held the family together. That's the thanks he got for saving her life, allowing her to be born. And so after they joined the church, they then became missionaries to go around and talk about the learning of the Jews' Book of Mormon to warn about Armageddon, because we're an apocalyptic church. A Jewish apocalyptic church. That's new. There are Christian apocalyptic churches about the loser Jesus who couldn't fulfill prophecy in the Roman period time, who gets a second chance at some unknown time in the future. So for 1,700 years, don't you mean 2,000, Travis? No, 17. Remember Constantine? He created it all. It wasn't the Jewish authors who wrote those Gospels. There were other names designated for the Christ, but there is only one name, and it is not Jesus. It is Emmanuel. Nonetheless, and so these Danites maliciously, militantly, as evil designed and cannot memorize with beings. Associative memory. It only tells me what to reference. And so I will reference it for you now. Evil disposed and designing persons. Lied to new converts, saying, hey, we're Christian. It's all about Jesus. This Book of Mormon, it's evidence of the historical reality of Jesus. Just like Christians did to those Jewish authors. Not anti-Semitic whatsoever, is it? And it's just appalling that Mormons still do not understand how they could be anti-Semitic. How? Where's the anti-Semitism? Where? 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 2. It automatically tells you it is not literal history. Automatically tells you you're not supposed to use Christian interpretation with Christian Jesus, even if you change his nature and character to non-Trinitarian. It makes you anti-Semitic. You know, like those Islams who did the same thing to the Jews. And so Joseph Smith would then go on to try to establish a bank in a brand new city. And the Danites took out loans from the bank and refused to pay them back, thus collapsing the bank. And Joseph Smith got blamed because he's the captain of the ship. It was the secret combination. And so you think Section 119 was Joseph Smith's New economy. No. Forged document created after Joseph Smith was murdered. Yeah, look at the date of when it was supposedly given by Joseph. And it's priestcraft. Wow. Yeah, so much for the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith said, screw the Book of Mormon. We're practicing priestcraft. Book of Mormon doesn't know. It's no longer the keystone. That's what it means. Do you not understand this, Mormons? If Section 119 is true, as a legitimate document from Jesus, then it means the Book of Mormon is no longer the keystone of our religion. Because the Book of Mormon, as the keystone, says that Jesus says no priestcraft. So if Jesus overthrew priestcraft, it's now legitimately the law now, then the Book of Mormon is now worthless and is wrong. Take your pick, Mormons. Oh, you already have, but you still claim the Book of Mormon as true. Dear God, this is the enemy. These were my little kid peers, full of contradictions, and they refused to acknowledge that there were contradictions. Denialism was a big thing. And so, Joseph Smith had to give his 1838 history visionary account, learning of the Jews, which means it's not literal history. Oh, but wait, Travis, see the name of the church? It's got Jesus in it. You're wrong. Yeah, you never bother to check the Joseph Smith papers, because you already know the truth from your feelings. You don't need to confirm what you already have confirmed with your feelings. Yeah, Willard Richards changed the name of the church. Willard Richards was in Brigham Young's 12. Willard Richards is a Danite. Yeah, who was in Carthage jail with Joseph and Hiram? Who? Who shot Joseph in the back and threw him out the window? Who? So yeah, these Danites are real evil people. They then, after Joseph Smith pulled that stunt of the visionary accounts of how he's the Jewish Christ, how dare you, Joseph? Jesus is Lord. Screw the Jewish authors from which we're replacing. And so, election fraud. At their secret Danite headquarters at Adam Ondi Ammon, a.k.a. Newell K. Whitney's home. They all gathered there and then marched down to the polling stations and threatened to overthrow and decertify the election. Sound familiar? Yeah, because those descendants were also involved in ours. Because that's what they were planning to do. It's the pattern. This was the pre-show. The sample. These guys are the secret band of Gadianton. They were purposely murdering, raping, stealing, burning, destroying their neighbors to get Joseph Smith in trouble. And he got in trouble a lot because of the Danites. They were practicing polygamy. They were technically making an excuse to rape other men's wives and underage girls. So when Oliver Cowdery left the church because it didn't go in the right direction that he wanted the church to go in, he then found out from David Whitmer about how Joseph Smith all of a sudden became the leader of the Danites with Sidney Rigdon and changed the name of the church. Yeah, the Danites were the ones who were threatening people to join Joseph with the new church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or be murdered. And then they would eventually, when Joseph would start working on the Nauvoo temple and collecting donations from members, didn't keep a ledger, Brigham thought, hey, this is a great idea to fund my economy for my secret band of Gadianton, and would go around to the other Danites and the polygamous victim wives to collect for the temple? No. It was for Brigham Young, section 119. Yeah. And so that money was used as the Judas price to have Joseph Smith and Hiram murdered. It was the fleeing money when Brigham Young abandoned the Mormons and fled the United States into the Salt Lake Valley with his Vanguard Company. Yeah, the rest didn't have enough money to pay for the trip, so they stayed behind. But, Brigham Young, the very next year after the next year when Mexico seceded the land to the United States, Brigham Young began to issue slavery, the Perpetual Immigration Fund, to get all those poor, lazy Mormons to this valley to build up his army against the United States to take back his land. The United States would eventually go on to shut down that church in 1887. Oh, you didn't know? The church didn't tell us? You thought it was our religious freedom rights to practice child bride polygamy? Yeah, who were the polygamous wives of Willard Richards again? That same one who murdered Joseph and changed the name of his church? Oh, it was a 14 and 16-year-old sisters, huh? And when did they get married? By Joseph? To Willard Richards? Oh, January 1846. In the Nauvoo temple that was all built, ready to go, but didn't get dedicated until the anniversary of the Illuminati on May 1st. There were Mormons who left, saying Brigham Young can't be true if he can't have it dedicated on the 6th of April, when it was ready back in January. Yeah, you've been lied to, critics. It's not about getting the wrong feeling to know that the church is false. You should have caught on that if that's how you find out the church is true, then the whole thing is a fraud. You don't just get the other feeling to know the truth. It's not a 50-50 thing. That's what's called a false dichotomy. So, yeah, the critics all think that Joseph Smith is to blame, clueless that it's these Danites. And so, after Joseph Smith was assassinated, they were outraged at themselves? No, they blamed the United States. And so we don't have in our temple text endowment anymore, "Death to America." It's sort of there. There's some remnants still remaining. But, nope, it's gone. And so, yeah, the ones who caused the problem blamed others, and often the victim, and showed absolutely no remorse. They used it as a cause for their eventual future plot to overthrow the United States of America. Exactly like my white supremacist childhood peers. Blame the alcohol. Blame the woman for what she was wearing. Oh, they're just born that way. And so, yeah, the only thing to be done with MAGA is to do exactly what Captain Moroni did to the Kingmen. And because Biden doesn't have the spine to do it, it will not be done. And the Book of Mormon warns us what is going to happen, and it's already happening. All of the MAGA states are now supporting what Texas is doing. They've seceded from the nation. And so the MAGA states are following in line because Biden doesn't have the spine to do what needs to be done. He is purposely helping MAGA destroy our nation. Just like the Book of Mormon warned us. Just as Joseph Smith warned us about these Danites and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the great and abominable church. Consequences follow actions. And by not making a choice, you are also making a choice. So yes, those Danites used that excuse. Well, I wasn't directly involved in any of that. Yeah, but you're not condemning it. You're not going around correcting the false misinformation. You're not standing up for truth. You're instead calling yourself a truther, saying it's your truth. The only truth is through science, using logically sound Socratic methodology. The guy on that website, of which his commenters were bashing me as a heretic, who then reached out to me on Academia. Yeah, his final one that I'm not going to respond to it. He said that he had spent his life as a medical doctor and then asked me the sincere question, is medicine science? Oh, dear God. If you're a medical doctor and all you're doing is symptom relief, symptom management, you need to be stripped of your license, you need to be stripped of your job, never to practice again, and be thrown in prison. You have violated your Hippocratic oath. Hey, that's psychologists. They don't have a Hippocratic oath. And all they do is symptom management for behavioral control. Right, John? Oh, the Church of John Dehlin of Latter-day Saints who left, where those who got the other feeling. Well, that's exactly what it is. And he's ensnared all the other critics who do their videos. Exmolex, Zelf on the Shelf, the Arizona woman who did her thesis on the intellectual Mormons. Yep. He ensnares everybody into his psychology web to make them all part of the false dichotomy. And so, yeah, as a result, you'll eventually get a percentage of ex-Mormons who realize that this is a ridiculous argument to make. And so they remember the feelings of the church being true, and they go back to church, and then Saints Unscripted get them. I left the church, but then I came back. Here's why. Even John Dehlin. 3 questions on Fox 13 with the other Mormon, who I think is still the counselor in the stake presidency out in Draper. Would you ever consider coming back to church? Yeah. Things would have to be different, but yeah, I don't think they'll let me, though. And then Avraham Gileadi, who betrayed the truth because the church threatened him and punished him. And then Natasha Helfer, is that her first name? The psychologist who for some reason used science, medical science, at a time when the church was pushing anti-porn. These are images? They don't pose a threat to humans. Masturbation? No. That's a basic necessity. Nope, says the church, and out she went. But nobody sees the big picture. Everybody focuses on the issue that's currently in the news. And more padding. I had bought an extra pad, and then that quickly didn't work long enough. So I have an extra padding with the towel, and that's not working now either, as we are getting closer to the laundry day. So that could also explain why. Because I've gotten 2 extra shirts to extend my laundry day. The poor life I lead. Yep. Dear God. My own parents erased me from history by orders of the church. The church pulled the same Danite stunt on me. All I did was file a petition in the state of Utah for a redress of grievances against the church being supported by the state. So I'm the victim now. I'm the war criminal. Literally, yep, I was called a terrorist to justify sealing the case and having me disappeared for 6 years of my life while they tried to murder me. See, I know the truth. Nobody can lie to me and gaslight me to believe that the church somehow is true and good. Nobody gets this. Even critics who say, no, Travis Joseph, you're not getting it. You're not seeing how evil the church really is. There is a YouTube channel by a guy out in England who does videos talking about criticism of other religions. And he had come across my academia page and wanted to interview me. The church intercepted and tanked my interviews so I couldn't be interviewed. I was out in the West Valley. And that gave the guy time to have doubts, and found some more videos of mine in which he was uncomfortable with how dark and evil this church is, because that's not what he wanted to discuss. Wasn't interested in the truth. He wanted just a simple criticism of how the church isn't Christian. Yeah, these Danites commit the crimes, they victim blame, and they claim innocent, and they show no remorse. And they let them getting away with it be the new normal until they do the next one. It's the same exact pattern. And for our government, for our police force, for our president to not step up and do their job is aiding and abetting. Just like our police chief, Caruth, in South Salt Lake, who aided and abetted the shelter of Gail Miller to be a slaughterhouse of the homeless. And it wasn't until he crossed the line and let another police officer get away with things that he got sacked. And so I'm still waiting to see if this new police chief is going to do her job, or if she's just the figurehead. We've replaced the problem. Everything's fine now. Move along. Business as usual. That seems to be what it is. Because by now we should have seen something in the news about her reign on the throne, and we're not. So that's exactly what it is. She was merely told, we just need someone else. Don't let cops do this, but let everything else go. That's how it works in a mafia-run state. If you pay your percentages, the boss will protect you. I saw my favorite Star Trek episode yesterday. It's a sad one. And no, it's not Tribbles. And no, it's not Khan. It's the one where they go to the planet and there's the meteor destructor thing that's called the Temple, where the Native American Indians are living there on the planet. Kirk gets his brain zapped, and so he then becomes the medicine man of the community, and then marries the high priestess, and then impregnates her, and because he did not fulfill the prophecy when the people interpreted the prophecy to be fulfilled, they stoned them, which had murdered his wife and the baby that was still in the womb. And then, of course, Captain Kirk went on to save them according to prophecy. But now he's gone back up onto the ship, and the other guy who got away with the murder, inciting the mob, no longer gets the woman that he wanted, for which he was jealous with Captain Kirk. And so he's back to being the medicine man again, and they walked away, getting away with it. Kirk fulfilled their prophecy, but they murdered his wife and baby. Fetus has no rights yet. And they just had no remorse. Just like the Danites. It's exactly what the Danites do. And yeah, I know critics mock and laugh that the Book of Mormon is referring to literal history American Indians as the Lamanites. Not understanding that it's code for Brigham Young's Danites. Before they even were created. And critics cannot accept this. The Book of Mormon cannot be prophetic. It has to be literal history like the church says it is, so that they can get the wrong feeling and mock it. And so, since we're almost on an hour here, Jasmine, there are certain patterns that I recognize, and so when those patterns are not continued, it's what's called an anomaly. And so having been in failed relationships and failed marriages, I'm aware of these kinds of patterns. Now, granted, you're out there in Kentucky, and granted, you have a life, but you came to me, and you established a pattern. And now you're doing an anomaly. Is everything okay? Because we just went through this already, where you said everything is fine, I've just been extra busy, we're working on a gift for you. And then anomaly again. What's going on? Alrighty. So, my whole day ahead of me now.